mute, just keep talking.
All right.
Hey, you are live.
Awesome. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. I am Dana Zanders. I am one of the business coaches here at the Wise Women's Business Center. And if you are joining us today, you are in for a very interesting and exciting discussion about building your business's website with our very own subject matter expert, Ms. Kim Dryden. But before we get started, I would like to just talk a little bit about the WISE for those who are new to the WISE or unfamiliar. WISE is a business center dedicated to women entrepreneurs in Central New York, and we are here to assist you in any stage of your business and just to kind of provide training and one-on-one counseling and to connect you with resources and provide you with experts who can assist you along the way. So with that said, if you have not been to one of our power hours before, it is designed to be extremely interactive. So if you have a question, please feel free to put your question in the chat and we will answer your question. And with that, I want to pass it to our expert today, Ms. Kim Dryden. You want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. This is my first power hour. Very exciting for me. I've watched a lot, but so yeah, I'm Kim. I am the program manager at Wise Women's Business Center. And I also have a small business of my own that we do, my husband and I, digital marketing, and my part of it is doing web design and branding, specifically for usually small businesses and entrepreneurs. I'm self-taught. I took a course, like a couple week-long course through Design Labs, and have just really learned through trial and lots of error. So I come from a place of a novice, total beginner at one point, and have done this maybe for about 5 years now.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So then maybe we'll just jump right in.
Sounds good.
All right. So I think my first question, and I know we talked about this briefly, and I'm very excited about this topic for a number of different reasons. But so I think one of my first questions would be, is there a list of things, like is there a list of things potentially that every small business website should have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And even before we get into the details, just like, yes, you do need a website. Whoever you are, wherever you are, if you are listening and it's a thought that has occurred to you, you probably do need a website. You probably don't need, you might not need like a hugely complicated and big website, but it is an expectation in this day and age that every small business, every entrepreneur has some kind of web presence. So I get that question a lot. So I just want to get that one out of the way.
Awesome.
I'm assuming I'm preaching to the choir because you're here listening to this. But yeah, I think at the highest level, every website needs to represent the brand of your business. And that comes through in everything from the colors you use, the typography you choose, the type of imagery, and even the tone of voice in the copy itself and the words that you use. So it's partly like a brand representation. And then it also just needs good content. So things that are practical, like hours and location, products and services. But also hopefully some of that story of your business too, like who do you serve and why? So it's kind of a combination of those three things.
Awesome. And so if I am a small business owner, which I am, and I was thinking about getting a website, how would I know if I should take the time to design and develop a website myself versus hiring somebody to do it for me?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it usually comes down to like skills. Do you have some basic tech skills? Not like coding. You do not need to hard code a website. That's ridiculous, and nobody needs to do that anymore, thankfully. So skills, budget. Can you afford to have somebody else do it? And interest. Is this a project you're going to enjoy or at least like learn from? Mm-hmm. And if not, and you have the budget, hire somebody. But if so, it can really be a clarifying process in the same way that like writing a business plan helps clarify your business concept. Forcing yourself to sit down and really build a website that is your storefront. It's like the face of your business on the internet is hard. It's challenging, but it's also, it brings clarity and it brings just like a focus, I think, to the way that you talk about your business. So if you can afford it and you hate it, hire somebody. If you're like, I can't afford it and I'm mildly interested in this, like go for it. And it is totally doable to build your own website.
Awesome. And I know we talked a little bit about that earlier. And you mentioned content as one of the things that should be included. How would I know if I decide to build it and design it myself versus hiring somebody? How do I know how much content is too much versus what's too little?
Yeah. So you have content usually on two parts of your website. So one is the blog, and that's where you can add new stuff all the time. So individual posts, you can do videos, written content, even like imagery if you have like a creative business, something like that. So that's almost separate. On the blog, there's really no such thing as too much content. And we can talk about strategies for blogging and what it can do for your business. On your main site, simple is best. You want to make sure that you are answering all the questions that your customers have and might have, but in a way that is logical and easy to navigate. So for example, don't make your homepage like 19 scrolls long with like 45 sections and 8,000 words. Like nobody wants that. Nobody's going to read any of that if they even get a hint that it's that long. So your homepage should be really condensed, is probably not the right word, but straightforward, and just the basics of like, who do you serve? How do you serve them? What is this all about? And then using sub pages to go deeper. So just like every website most of us have looked at, most websites have a homepage, you have an about page, a contact page, and then probably something about your products and services. And then from there, it kind of depends on your business, what some of the other content you might have. So being clear with your wording and concise is important, and save all the extra stuff that you're really excited to share. Save that for your blog usually.
Awesome. All right. And then so if I'm continuing to build my website, I know that there are a lot of different websites out there. How do I know which one would be best? How do I know what to look for if I'm building a website?
Yeah, so if you want, we can kind of walk through the high level steps a little bit. So the first thing you want to do, and because I'll get right to that platform thing in a second, but get your brand assets together. That's really step one. So if you don't know what your brand is yet, you're probably not ready to build a website. You're not ready to invest a lot of time and money in a website. You can always, if you have a business idea and you got the funds to do it, stand up a landing page by all means. Like there's nothing wrong with having a presence, but if it's like the website project, it's good to have your brand figured out. So understanding your brand values, your mission, and how you communicate those things through visual design, which we can talk about a little bit later, like a brand identity kit, and your tone. That's good to have. So like if you have a style guide, great to have on hand. And then a logo, obviously like the name of your company is really important. Yeah, your color palette, things like that. So once you kind of gather all your stuff together, then you have the, it's like your palette that you can apply to the website. And then you're going to need to sketch out your sitemap, what we talked about. So what pages, what content needs to live on each of those pages. And you can just look at other websites like this. You shouldn't have a novel sitemap. If this is like the most unique sitemap and it's got all these surprising pages with weird names, that's not great, because Google's like algorithm that crawls pages and sorts them for ranking isn't going to recognize like a really clever page title. And people don't recognize it either. So follow standards. Like if most pages have home, about, services, you probably need those too. Yeah, I see the question from Eileen here. How do you determine whether to have just a landing page or a full website? A landing page usually refers to like, I think of it anyway as like a marketing landing page. So if you have like a new product, you might have a landing page that's just for that product, or like one service. So it's comprehensive. It talks about what this thing is, what it does, who it's for. But if you're talking about for your business in general, you should probably have a full website. It's better to have content broken out on different pages. for both of those reasons, just for human readability and like Google's algorithm. And there's a lot of information people want. So making sure that you're answering all the questions that you might have about a similar business, like how do I get a hold of you? How much does your service cost? Have you worked with other people successfully in the past? All that kind of stuff should be on a website.
Awesome. And
So
then,
yeah, I wanted to get to your platform question. I'm sorry, I think I went off track a little bit before, but anyway, so platforms, yeah, there's like WordPress, Shopify, and Squarespace and Wix, and those are very similar. So I kind of think about those three as the major platforms. And which one you choose depends on your skill level and the needs of your business, I would say.
do you have a recommendation by chance in terms of one that may be a little bit more complex versus the other?
Yeah, so really broad strokes. WordPress is of those kind of three categories. WordPress is the most powerful and has, yeah, Carrie, I'll touch on that in a second. That's a great question. WordPress is really powerful and it has the most flexibility. So if you are relatively tech savvy and you're like, I think I could figure this out, WordPress and a good theme is a good way to go. If you're total e-commerce, Shopify is the best way to go. Shopify is an e-commerce website builder. It has all of its tools are geared towards e-commerce, so it does e-commerce particularly well, whereas WordPress is a great like content site. Like if you have a blog or if you want to host video, it can do e-commerce. There's all kinds of plugins, but it's not necessarily geared towards that. And then Squarespace and Wix are simpler, I would say, than WordPress. It's a drag and drop kind of editor. Of the two, I prefer Squarespace just because it's a bit more structured and cleaner, I think. But I use Wix a lot for client sites, and I think it's also pretty easy to use. So WordPress, if you can handle it and you're doing like a lot of blogging or content, Shopify for e-commerce, and Squarespace or Wix if you're just getting started or want it to be really faster and easier.
Okay. You touched a little bit about on strategies and brand kits, and you also said something about Google. So as a search engine, how would you recommend, or is there a tool that you would recommend to get customers to your website if you were going to do it, or if you had somebody to do it for you?
Yeah, so marketing is a really big topic and really interesting. And I'm not a super expert on marketing, but it's, I know it well enough to talk about it kind of generally. So there's lots of ways to get to get customers to your website. And that's just the top of funnel marketing, is that awareness, like they're coming to your page. You can do that through social media. So linking those two things, a lot of people drive a lot of traffic through social media, which is great. Some people will do search engine marketing, which is the paid part. So if you do a Google search for like bakeries, Syracuse, you're going to see some that have ad next to it. And that's a bakery paying Google money to appear high up in the search results. So you can pay to appear high up, or you can do what's called search engine optimization, SEO, to appear in those organic results. So below the ads, if you have a great site with great content and you're doing the technical stuff right, you'll appear higher and higher in those search results.
Interesting.
It is. SEO can get really complicated, but the like base of it is have a well-made website that makes sense in terms of like the layout. It answers customers' questions, so it's useful. It's like providing valuable information, and it's updated. So that's another reason why blogging or just posting some kind of content on a blog, even if it's just video, not just video is great, but whatever kind of content you want to share, it's good to put that out there because it shows your site is active and there's a conversation happening.
Okay. And then somebody just asked the question, what about Weebly?
I don't know too much about Weebly. That is definitely like a simpler, I think, type of platform. I think it's not quite as powerful as the ones I mentioned in terms of like the features of what it can do. But I do think they have a free version, and that could be really useful if you're just trying to get started there. And yeah, Carolyn's mentioning we have a power hour just on SEO. Thank God. I don't know that much about SEO. I know the like content side of it, like how to, as a business owner, what you can do, the technical stuff. you can read up on it. There's some stuff that like I built websites for 5 years and I would hire an SEO expert for like a big site where search results matter because it gets quite technical and just beyond my capabilities. And honestly, I don't care. Like it's not, I don't not care. It's not that interesting to me. I like the design. I like the idea of like marketing funnels and converting customers. Once you get to like the technical, like meta tags and stuff, it's like, it's outside of my zone of genius, as Barb Stone would say. So that's a thing I would consider hiring out for if it like you know, or like me, if you're not that interested in it.
And then I tend to be a procrastinator. I know we talked a little bit about that as well.
You did,
In
yeah.
terms of fine tuning and trying to make sure that it's perfect before it's published. What are your thoughts in terms of, bringing it to life and trying to ensure that it's perfect prior to bringing it to life?
It's never going to be perfect. Nothing we create is ever going to be perfect. So get it out there. I would say force yourself to publish your website when you're like terrified of people seeing it. And that will force you to spend time on it. Because once it's live, you're like, oh no, I must keep this up to date. I have to change this piece. So for me, yeah, I work well when there's a little bit of pressure and maybe like a deadline. So get it out there, get it live, and then start getting feedback. So talk to people who are either like past customers or better yet, like in your target market who haven't worked with you yet and see what they think. And not like, do you like my website? Because people are gonna be nice and be like, yeah, I like your website. But like sit with them and watch them go through it. Where do they get stuck? Where do they have questions? What confuses them? Where are they clicking? So it can be as simple as like a Zoom call where they share their screen and you watch them navigate your website in a really rough state, which is going to be very uncomfortable, but you're going to learn a lot from that kind of experience.
The goal also is to ensure that when a customer enters your site, that they have what they need, right? To be able to obtain the information and or if it's a service, the goal, I guess, is to ensure that all the information is provided to them to make an informed decision.
Yeah, you want to think about like the customer journey. So try to put on the hat of like, I'm a new customer. I came to this website for the first time. What might they look for? Depending on your business, it might be as simple as your hours, and then they're going to bounce. And you can see all this through Google Analytics, by the way. If you install Google Analytics, you can see how people flow through what page, like what's the second most visited page. That's a great thing to know. So where are people going? How much time do they spend on each page? But thinking through that customer journey. So if you have like a consulting business, for example, your customer journey usually is not going to be a purchase event on your website. They're going to use your website to learn about you, learn about the service, and probably just express interest. So you're getting to that like middle of the funnel of interest or intent through something like a form fill. So they might they might give you their email address to stay up to date with your newsletter. Or they might book a consultation, like a free consultation to see, are you a good fit for each other? That's good for that type of business. If you're e-commerce, you better take their money and be able to take their money. So it's a slightly different customer journey depending on the type of business that you have.
What if I don't know where to start? Because, I talked a lot about having the idea and wanting to start it versus paying somebody, if you will, to design my website for me. What if I just have no idea where to start? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I would do like an informal needs assessment with myself or a business partner if I have one and say, what does this website need to do? How important is this website in the scheme of things? Like as my marketing material goes, what is this being used for? And can like do a little skills assessment too. Like, do I think I realistically can build this thing in a decent amount of time? Like if you don't know how to log into a Zoom call, you probably shouldn't be building your own website. It's going to be painful and you're going to hate it. So don't try. You can try. I just mean spend your energy on the things you're good at and you like to do. So if it feels like it's going to be a drag, it's going to be a drag. You're not wrong. Like we know this about ourselves, I think. So doing that and then having, the honest conversation, like, is this something I want to take on? If not, do I have the budget? to take this to somebody else? If so, there's all kinds of, we can talk about that too, but like ranges that you can find people to help you build a website for, and like ranges of quality as well. And then, yeah, I wrote this blog post that's kind of similar to the steps that we're going over, and I'll send it out via like an email blast today, maybe. And it's already on our blog, so we can share it. I think Carolyn said she'll share it on Facebook. So go through that. If you're like, yeah, I'm going to DIY this, go through that blog post step by step, and then reach out to us if you get stuck.
Awesome. But you still, to your point, would have to have an idea of what it is you're going to put on your site, either way.
Yeah, and I think like a great place to start, if you're like, yes, I am going to DIY this, and maybe I'm also nervous about it or like a little anxious about it, start with the hero section. So the hero section is that top, like above the fold, as if it was a newspaper, the first thing you see on anybody's website. It should pass the 5-second test, which means literally in like 5, 6, 7 seconds, a new visitor should be able to look at that and know exactly what you do and if it's for them. So you'll see websites sometimes that are like, they're using like mysterious language. It sounds like, ooh, like fancy, but I have no idea what you do. That's not good. Complexity and being vague is awful. It's like the worst thing you can do on a website, unless that's your brand for some reason and you're very exclusive and you don't want people to know what you do. Okay, but like most cases, it should be the simplest language possible. Like, we help entrepreneurs create amazing learning experiences for their students or something, or we help entrepreneurs grow their business through online learning experiences or something, where it's like the who, the result, and how. Those are usually the 3 things. So once you have that like really clean and you know what the top of the website looks like, that's 75% of what people are going to look at. And then they're going to click contact and get in touch with you if they know that's for them. For the other 25% of people who want to scroll and read everything, then you build the rest of the website. But if you get a nice, clean hero section with some contact information, that's a good place to start, at least to get your like value proposition out there.
Excellent. I don't know if do we have any other questions, Carolyn,
I don't see anything in.
Did you elaborate on a few things as well, Kim?
Oh yeah, we can talk about some technical stuff if you want.
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. So one question I get a lot is like, how do I choose a domain name? So your actual URL. So for us, wisecenter.org is our domain. That's tricky. If you have a business already, you're a little bit limited because it has to somehow relate to that business. Obviously, like if you can get your exact business name.com, awesome. Those domains are usually taken, even like names and stuff. Like I tried to get like KimberlyDryden.com. No, doesn't work. I had to go with my full name. And it's specific, that's not even like a bigger, like a more generic website kind of title. So you may have to buy a domain from Carrie says, I have my domain, now what? Yeah. Now you pick a platform and you decide where your domain goes. So you decide WordPress or Squarespace. In your case, Carrie, knowing your business, because Squarespace has e-commerce. Squarespace is, I think, just like a nice, easy way to start. If you're not sure, it's relatively affordable. But you would pick the platform of your choosing, and then you pick a template. And there's nothing wrong with using a template. Some people are like, I'm going to customize my template. And like, that's cool. You can do that, but you can also just use one of theirs and change the colors and change the images, and it's going to look totally different. No shame in that. And it's going to be way faster than if you try and like build every little block yourself. That takes so long and it's going to discourage you. So pick your template and then start customizing it. The templates are usually going to be like, I find 75% what I'm looking for. So I'm working on a website right now for a client, and I use WordPress and I use Divi Builder, which is part of like Elegant Themes is like, it's part of that. It's a little bit technical, but Divi Builder is a piece, like a tool basically within WordPress that makes it easy to drag and drop modules. So if I'm like, I need a video, I literally pick from a little gallery, drag it over, put the video where I want to, and then like upload the video so it displays there. It does a lot more than that, but it's literally a drag and drop visual editor. So definitely get a theme that has something like that. So Beaver Builder is another one. That's what we use at Wise. Super easy to use, tons of documentation. Divi's good. Elementor is another one that I haven't used myself, but I've heard is okay, or haven't used in a long time. And yeah, get customizing, get your brand colors in there, get your typography set up, and then add the sections that you need, thinking through logically in what order on your homepage do people care about stuff. They want that big section, give them a little button so they can get right to it if they're just visiting you because they already know you and they want to find your contact info. And then usually like a mission statement, that's something to consider putting next, or some kind of like elaboration on what you're all about. And then services, like a quick overview. You can use those little cards. So it's like little sections on your website. So service A, B, C, you can click out and learn more. And then maybe the last thing is like testimonial, for example, that's common on a homepage. So somebody's, pretty picture with a quote about how awesome you are. So that's like very 101, how you would go from domain. Good job, Carrie, got the domain, to actually getting it going.
That's good then, because it gives you the confidence to be able to kind of cut and paste a template and design your own flair, or if you will, add your own flair to it, so you don't have to be intimidated by DIY website design and building, if you will.
Yeah, the templates are great. And something like, I am not sponsored by Divi, by the way. I just think they're great. So if you buy one of their themes, it comes with these layout packs. So it's not just one. Most themes are like you get one theme and maybe a few variations. This has like multiple themes within a theme. So for my clients, like I do some pro bono web design work for local organizations, or shouldn't doing one right now. It's not a ton, but for something like that where it has to be done fast, I don't have a ton of time to put into I'm not going to customize a theme because they need it so fast. So it's like, here's the 3 layouts I'm thinking. What aligns with your vision of your brand? Knowing that we can change colors and typography, pick one, and then I use those templates. I move stuff around as needed, but even for client work, I'm not spending a ton of time reinventing the wheel, because that's what these platforms are for. I think some people get hung up on like, I need to make this perfectly my own. Like, sure, down the road, and maybe down the road you hire a company to build you a $10,000 website, and that's gravy too. But like, to get started, just like make it simple for yourself so that it's up, because a website that's up is better than the perfect website in your head that never gets launched.
I agree with you. I agree. I think there are certain things that become a challenge when you begin to think about doing it yourself, and they may not necessarily be a hindrance, but because you're overthinking it, they tend to be.
Yeah, I think Carrie says, is Squarespace a monthly fee or by each transaction? Squarespace is monthly, and they have several different levels of that. So I think the most basic one is around like $29 a month. I don't know what their setup is for e-commerce, if they charge like a transactional fee. Shopify will, at their like lowest level, I think, charge you a transactional fee. So when you compare the tiers of any of these builders, it's really important to consider the extra cost. So like Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, Shopify, they're all going to have like basic, intermediate, advanced, or pro, or whatever. Some have like 4 or 5. It's always tempting to go with the like cheapest one because it's cheap. And I feel that, I get that. However, do the math on what's not included. Like if you don't have a professional email included, are you going to have to pay for that separately? If it doesn't come with enough storage and like hosting, you may have to upgrade anyway if you have a lot of video content. Or if it doesn't have plugins and stuff like that that are specific, you might have to buy those separately. So some plugins that that I've paid for clients before, there's security plugins to protect your website from hackers, especially for your forms. So you don't get tons of spam. There's spam blockers. There's really nice form builders. So you can have like really complex or really nice customized forms. That's a thing you might pay for. So there's just other costs to consider, including like, transaction costs too. So some of the most basic plans will look like, oh, it's like $7 a month, but they might charge 3% of every transaction, which is wild. So if you're actually using this site for more than just like, look, I have a website, I'm a real person. If you're really going to be selling stuff on here, consider those transaction fees. And you may want to go up to that next level, depending on how much business you do every month. And it might actually be cheaper.
And are most of those hosts comparable for the most part in terms of offering monthly and or the price? Do you, and I don't expect you to know, but just wondering if you did.
Generally, generally you can get a decent website on almost any of those platforms for like under $50 a month, I would say. It gets more expensive when you have fancy plugins, or if you have a ton of traffic. Some websites will charge you based on like the amount of like hosting, basically. So if you get more than like 20 visitors a day, even on some of the more basic plans, to look at like the gigabytes basically of storage they allow you to, is also a limiting factor. You can always upgrade. So it's never a bad idea to start with their most basic one. And then once you outgrow it, you can upgrade. They're never going to not take your money. So it's always doable. And like pro tip, wait for sales. Like Wix in general, or Wix in particular, I do a lot of client work on there. They'll almost always give you like a 50% off offer. And that can save you so much money. So you can do like the free site before you publish it kind of thing. You can work on it before you hit publish. I think it's like I'm not positive of this, but I suspect it's like a built-in, like, oh, you've been active for 5 days. You're clearly building something to incentivize you to purchase. They'll give you a deal and it'll be right in your dashboard. So look out for them. And I've actually even contacted their support before and been like, hey, I missed your sale by like 1 day. Can you give me that rate? And they did. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
That's good to know. That's excellent. I do see a question, security ideas.
Yeah, so you will need an SSL certificate. If you've ever visited a website that doesn't have one, it's going to give you, usually in like top left corner, it's going to be like not secure in red. And if you are on like SU's network, which I am, it won't even let you visit. Like if you're set up in a way, you might not be able to even go there. So you do need an SSL. That can be kind of a pain. Some of those website builders will have that built in, or will have that as an option that you can purchase through them. WordPress is a little bit trickier. I just had to do this for a client. Like they bought the SSL and I had to install it. It was not the easiest thing I've ever done. But GoDaddy, like depending on where your hosting is, like GoDaddy is a common host anyway, a popular host for WordPress site. They're, sorry, my dog is like groaning over here. Their customer support is awesome. So don't ever hesitate either to hit that little chat button or contact support, because most of these, they have awesome tech people who will get back to you in a couple minutes, and they just did it for me. I was like, listen, I'm on a call. I can't really like do this right now. Can you just like install this for me? They said, send me the file. I did, and like magic. So I start there often. I know I'm probably supposed to read the FAQ and try it myself, but if I'm real busy, I'm just like, dear support, I need your help. So that's one.
For those who don't know, what is the SSL?
SSL is I don't even know what it stands for, security certificate, basically. So it's like a token that tells a web browser, so like Chrome or Safari, that the site is like secured and safe and not like full of malicious software, like no one's going to steal your identity. If you don't pay for that, and it is another cost, if you don't pay for that, yeah, some people can't visit your site, or they're just going to be creeped out and they're going to say like, no, this doesn't look secure. They're going to steal my info. So important to make sure you have that locked down. Carry a file of what I sent them, the actual like certificate. It's like this long, not human readable, like text document, is what you install on the back end of your site. And again, this is WordPress, so it's the most complicated version of this. But I basically said, here's the stuff I downloaded, like fix this. And they did. Not as complicated through Wix, Squarespace, Shopify. I think it's built in, or if it's not, it's like an add-on essentially, but one you should do. So that's the most basic. That's almost more just showing the rest of the world that your site is secure. You should use plugins for WordPress that, like I have one that limits login attempts. So someone the other day tried to log into my website 20 times in a row, And yeah, so I went in there, changed my password to something super, super secure. And now I'm aware that's happened twice in the last like 6 months. So someone's been trying to, for whatever reason, get into my website. I don't take customer like credit card information, so they're not going to get anything exciting. But it's awful if they get in there because they may not give it back, and then you're locked out of your website, or they might put awful content on there that you do not want to be associated with. So plugins, making sure you have like spam blockers on your forms, so you don't get like really dumb form submissions like, "Hi, I'm Sam. Do you want to talk about SEO for your website? Like, call me." I get a ton of those. I set up a site the other day and hadn't yet enabled that. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Got like 30 of those emails.
And those,
So
they eliminate, the plugins eliminate those altogether?
they cut it down. Yeah. And you can do things like the CAPTCHA kind of thing where, you know, if it's ever been like, "Show me you're not a robot," like click on the cars, or type in a code that looks kind of weird because a computer can't read it. That's a type of plugin you can use on forums and stuff like that. So again, a lot of this comes built in with the more like beginner friendly platforms. So Squarespace and Wix and even Shopify. With WordPress, it is a bit more like custom. So you would have to use plugins for those.
Okay. It sounds like it's a matter of understanding what I need on the website.
Yeah, it is. And it's another example of like, if you're comfortable figuring this stuff out and like knowing enough of like, I know I should have a spam blocker. If you're at that level of like awareness, then WordPress is probably doable for you. If you're like, "Well, are these words? I don't care," then probably go with one of the more not entry level, but like Squarespace or Wix or Shopify or something like that, where you don't have to make those decisions. It's more built in.
This is awesome information. This definitely is like a don't miss conversation.
I hope so. So I think the technical stuff can get stressful. It doesn't have to be. And you can always hire somebody later to do like an SEO audit. Like you can do your best, stand up your website, therefore save yourself some money, and then get someone to do an audit. And they're going to tell you, if you find a good person, here's what's good, here's what's not so good, and here's what you should do to fix it. And then go do it. So that's a nice cheap way of like making sure your SEO is in good order, like your site is optimized, without having to hire somebody to do it from scratch, which is going to be a lot more expensive.
Because then you'd have to pay the cost of the site in addition to the for the technical work.
Yeah, and like not every web designer, web developer is going to be good at SEO. Some people don't do it at all, which is not great. So I guess, do you want to talk about hiring people?
Sure.
Okay, so if you're listening to this conversation and you're like, "No, hard pass, this sounds awful, I'm about to log off," or "I already have," guess you're not listening. But if you want to hire somebody, you can expect to pay anywhere from like, oh, I'm making this up, but like probably $400 at the very cheapest to like unlimited amounts of dollars. So at the low end, you might get like a student in school who's technically savvy, and that's great. You might get like a brand new web designer. Like my first site, I think I charged like $600 because I didn't know what I was doing. And I told them like, this is my first one, not for this like design program I took for 2 weeks. So it might be awful. Bear with me. It was okay. I did okay. But yeah, so with a low price point, like everything else, the quality may not be there. And that's okay. Like if you are a brand new business owner and you just need a website that has like your contact info, you don't have a huge budget, that's okay. That's a good place to start to get something up there. Middle of the road, like I'm not taking on new clients, but the last one I did, like a paying client, I charged like $18.50, I think. And I think that is, I think that is very reasonable considering the time and energy I put into it. That's a lot for some people, but at that price point, that like around $2,000 price point, that it's common to find, I think like good. You should expect quality for that amount of money in terms of a few things. So design, yes, for everybody, but also like copywriting. I charge more to do copywriting for clients, and most web designers do, because it's hard. It's hard to write in someone else's voice, and like that's the most time consuming thing, is like crafting their perfect like about page. I don't like doing that. So I upcharge for that. I'm like, you can do it. Just send me the copy. I'll send you like the word count. You send it to me, easy cheesy. And you should also expect them to do like some SEO work. So some of the technical stuff to make your website appear in search results, and then train you how to use it. Anybody you hire, make sure you spend minimum of like an hour where they share their screen and they walk you through like, how do you write a blog post? How do you log in and change text and images? Things like that. So don't let them go without the keys to the castle, or else you're going to be dependent on them to make like a change to your hours or to add a new service, and it doesn't have to be that way. And then on the high end, you could pay, if you go with like an agency that's going to put a team on this. They have a copywriter, a designer, they have awesome photography that they can use, maybe even doing custom photography or graphic design, like creating your own icons, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 probably. And north for big companies, if you have like databases, complex like profiles, and like the back end kind of solutions, that costs money.
And then, so how would I go about finding someone to build it for me? And then what, outside of the things that you just mentioned, what other questions would I ask when I do find someone?
That is a very good question. Unfortunately, this should be like a call. If you anybody watching this now or later, if you know web designers that you've worked with in the past that are local to CNY, let us know. We're always looking to like build our list of people we can refer out to clients. I don't know of a ton of people locally. I know of a few. You can, if you're going for that like entry level, you want just a website, and it's okay if it's a relatively new person. We have a lot of colleges in the area that might be interested in that. You can also try something like Fiverr or Upwork. Mixed results, like with everything else. You want to look at their portfolios, and you want to be super clear about how you scope the project. Ask about number of revisions is important on Fiverr and Upwork. And it's not always you get what you pay for on those sites, I find. Some people will charge a lot of money and like put up something that's not very good, and you'll never hear from them again. So look at reviews, ask if they have a team doing it or if it's just them. Like, are they outsourcing this for a lower price? So that's one way. Or you can find like a creative agency that does design work. If you have the budget for that, that's awesome, because then they're going to be putting, if they're good, lots of people on it. There's several creative minds bringing your business's story to life. Like, what a luxury. So if you can go that way, it can be a good option. But you should ask about number of revisions. Do they do copywriting? What kind of imagery will they use? Are they just going to use like the first photo that pops up on a stock image search that's free and going to be awful and awkward and like, haha, like too big of smiles? Hate those. Graphic design, if they do that custom, or if they're just going to use something free. And if they have like a page limit, some people might say, oh, for $1,000, I'll make you like a 10-page website. Make sure you have 10 or fewer pages. So those are some of the questions I would ask if I was looking to hire somebody.
And then typically, would you also ask if they're going to be available to provide updates if necessary, or for the most part, does that come with the package of what you pay for?
It depends, not necessarily. I don't love to do updates for my clients. I'm also like not a full-time web designer. So if I was, I would probably structure this differently. It's always been kind of like a side hustle, side hobby kind of for me. So I tell them like, I'm going to give you great documentation. I'll record a video of how you make changes, how you update your blog, because I don't want to deal with this anymore. Some people will charge you like $20 a month for the, privilege, I guess, of having them on call to fix stuff with your website. If you have the budget and that gives you peace of mind, by all means. I would prefer an arrangement where they would work on like an hourly basis to make updates so that you're only paying if you need them. But talk to past clients of theirs, I would, because, with anybody who's like very technical, like if you get someone that's more of like developer coder that learned how to do design versus like design that learned the technical, they might just be hard to get a hold of, or like not people, might be not a great relationship. So you may find like, oh, I'm paying for this and I don't want to talk to them. They're awful. And I don't want to ask them to do updates. So make sure that part's negotiable too. So if you decide like, actually, I can figure out how to change the text on my homepage, I don't want to pay for it, make sure that's okay based on the contract that you're looking to sign.
Excellent. Good stuff. I don't know if we have any other questions.
Yeah, give me more questions. Carrie, you've had a lot of good ones. I'm looking at you. While people are pondering, I just talked to somebody the other day about like I did a website audit for somebody in our business plan intensive. And a common thing I see, and I saw this on her website, was writing about what you provide versus what your client or your customer gets. So it is a small difference, but so that's the difference between like, I build online courses for entrepreneurs versus I help entrepreneurs grow their business through online learning experiences. So no one cares what you do for the most part. That's kind of a broad statement. They care what they get from working with you. They care about the results. They care about the end product. So as a designer, nobody cares that I can like find them a good plugin and like I'm going to use white space appropriately. Like, no, they don't. They care that their website's cool and that people buy stuff from it. So if I was making a website, I would say helping entrepreneurs, do more business online or establish like a beautiful professional web presence. It's not really about me. It's about your customer and what they get. So keeping that in mind when you write the copy is important. So because it speaks to people more.
I think that's a great point.
Common one, yeah.
I think that is a great point because I think about when I go onto websites, I'm more interested in what you can do for me versus what you can do.
Yes. Right? Yes. Carrie, that's a very specific question. Do clients like fun built-in games, like topography-based stuff? Your clients probably do. Your people in your target market, if they care about like the services you provide and the awesome stuff you make, yeah, probably. It's okay to be whimsical. Like you can add in these like fun elements if it aligns with your brand and if it makes sense for your target market. So we're doing this like, yeah, Carrie, I love that idea. We're doing these learning and accountability groups right now, and we have 2 cohorts and we're talking about branding. And today we went over 2 websites. One is Julie's, Joolies. They sell dates, like the food, like medjool dates and stuff like that. Their website is so fun and it's so cute and clean and professional. Like I love their website so much. And that's an example of a website that it totally lives its brand values. Like they are meant to be kind of cheeky. They have a lot of puns about like dates and dating. And it's just the traditional, like well-designed millennial brand. Like they're looking for younger customers who are going to pay for that, like cute packaging and great customer service. They're not paying for the customer that's like, I want these as cheap as possible. There's going to be in clear saran wrap, unlabeled at the bottom of an aisle at a grocery store. Very different target market. So knowing your market will help you decide like how complex your website should be and what it should look like and what's appropriate in terms of features, like what Carrie brought up.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Any other questions?
I'm looking through my notes too, what we talked about. Oh, after you publish your website, you're not done. Don't even think about that. Keep publishing content. So like a big part of SEO is like I use Google kind of generically. Search engines want to know, is your website providing good content? And is it part of the like, does it have domain authority, which is like a fancy word for saying like in your arena, your website is important and has credibility and clout. So like if people link out to your website, if people are sharing like your posts like from your website on social, the more like other external connections that touch your website, the higher your domain authority. So all that means you're just going to appear more in search results and have more like credibility in an algorithm's eyes. So if you're the kind of business that like, if you're e-commerce and you need lots and lots of people at the top of the funnel, not like consulting, that probably doesn't matter so much because it's going to be smaller numbers of people, but you should care about SEO a lot. And you also should care about putting out really valuable content. So keep blogging or putting other content out there, sharing that stuff on your own social platforms and incentivizing other people to share it too is important. So that's the content side. And on the technical side, use those dashboards. Every single one of these builders has a built-in dashboard to show you like the health of your site. Almost all of them are going to give you really helpful tips on what you can do to improve the customer experience, or like content you might be missing. Use those guides. Like Wix gives you a little checklist, like, hey, don't forget to like add page descriptions. Listen to Wix. That's going to help your SEO. And checking those web tools for like updates. Like WordPress, you got to update that a lot. All of your plugins have to be updated. Making sure, especially the security ones, are up to date. Your theme has to be updated. So you do need to care for this new thing that you've put together, and help it grow through both content and keeping an eye on the technical side.
It's an ongoing process.
It is, and it can be fun. Like I love checking out Google Analytics, like for Wise's website. It's fun to see like, ooh, we had like a 20% month over month growth in overall visitor traffic. Like that sounds nerdy, but it's cool because it's like, why? What are we doing that's driving traffic to our website? Where are they going? Like one interesting thing I found, are you getting the dog? Jolie? Sorry, my husband's taking the dogs out. One interesting thing I found by looking at Google Analytics was that our second most visited page was our about page. So people come to our website and they want to know who's behind it. Who am I going to be talking to? I was surprised. I thought it would be like the programs that we have, or like counseling, or even contact. And they're going to the about page. And I think that reinforced the idea for me that what we do at Wise Women's Business Center is so relationship based, and trust is such a big part of it. When you're being vulnerable or having, a bad day, or you're feeling overwhelmed with your business. So it makes sense in hindsight, but they care about who's going to answer their emails. They care about who the counselors are going to be. Like Carolyn, when she picks up the phone and answers questions, like who are the faces? So you can find really important insights into what your users, your audience cares about by looking at some of those analytic tools too.
Excellent. Excellent.
I think that's, so we'll share this blog post. I'm kind of using that as just a way. Hey, Carrie, look at you with your video on. That's helpful. I love talking to humans.
I'm home with a sick boy, so it's been adventurous. So yeah, he's occupied, but that's why. Thank you so much for all this great stuff. I've been writing all kinds of notes, feeling more optimistic.
You can
Gotta
totally
get
do
my
this.
pictures. Thanks so much. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a project, but I feel like I have much better tools now.
Yeah, check out that blog post. It's literally step by step. Good. Love it. Love the confidence. You can do this. Yeah, so I think that's most of it, Dana. I would say one other thing is accessibility. I would be remiss we should talk about it right up top. So accessibility just means your website is usable by all kinds of people. So one of the major examples is usually like people using screen readers. So if somebody has some kind of vision impairment where they can't see very well, they could use this tool called a screen reader, and it literally like reads off the different elements of the screen. So if they kind of tab over to like a picture and you don't have an alt tag in there or any alt text, it's just going to say like JPEG 64544. That's not helpful. So thinking about our friends that have vision impairment, you describe the pictures in the alt text. Like this is a woman reaching down to pick up a package outside of her business. That helps make it accessible. And then things like color contrast. So making sure the text is a very different color from the background, so people who are colorblind can read your site easily. And there's really cool tools like WebAIM has this tool called Wave. You pop your URL in there and it scans it and it gives you a list and like a visual of accessibility issues on your site. So I don't know if I should admit this, I'm going to, but I was using this tool the other day when I was writing this blog post, and I popped in Wise's, and it showed me that on the tablet view of our site, there was like almost no contrast between the text and the background. I had checked mobile and I had checked desktop. I didn't change the background for the tablet version. So it was like white text on a very, very light gray background. Couldn't read it. That was just not a thing I came across. So it can pick out stuff like, and I'm consciously aware of trying to build an accessible website. So these tools are so helpful. So there's a few of those linked in that blog post as well.
Awesome. I can't wait for everyone to get their hands on that blog post, because just as this, I just feel like it's great information. And to your point, every business, every entrepreneur, every small business owner should have a website. So this is all information that is pretty much required.
That's right. Get the basics out there. And then, yeah, if you're like me and you love the pressure, just launch it when it's half baked, and then you'll feel forced to finish up that project. If that causes you anxiety, maybe don't do that. I don't know.
I need to give myself a deadline. That's probably what it needs to be.
Hold yourself accountable. Yeah. Get a friend like who can say, maybe somebody else working on their website, be like, all right, we're going to post it at the end of the month. I'm going to hit publish on your site, give them the login and be like, you're going to go in and you're going to hit publish on November 30th, whatever state it's in. And then time is ticking. You got to do it.
All right. That sounds like a good idea.
Awesome.
Your face says something different than your words, but I appreciate it.
Yes, and I want to say thank you to you, Kim, because this is, again, great information. Thank you so much for your expertise and your insight. This has been phenomenal. And so, we'll wait for that blog, the link to that blog to come out. And just, thanks again. And thanks to everybody for joining.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And for those of you watching, reach out with questions. I'm not an expert. I, self-taught, so I can teach you how to teach yourself and answer any questions as best I can.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Nice talking to you, Dana.
All right, you too. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye, Carrie.
Bye-bye.